What's up, nerds? I'm Wes.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
Today we're taking a look at Jinja seeking funding on Kickstarter.
So Jinja is a worker placement game now, and it's a very you'll be very familiar if you've played games like Lords of Waterdeep and Champions of Midgard. So it's something that's relatively simple that you can jump right into if you've played those other games. But it does have a decent amount of complexity and also a lot of I don't want to say hidden information, but there are these end game goal cards that you may be like, okay, I could get a couple extra points. But if you play your cards right, pun intended, you can get tons and tons of points at the end of the game here.
Yeah, the end game goals are definitely kind of the name of the game. So what you'll be doing is you're placing your workers out, you're collecting resources and money, and you're building your stuff out onto the board. And one of the big ways you get resources is each of these regions are seeded with resources, and you have a bag, and every round you add more resources out there. So regions that you don't go to are just going to get more and more resources, and they're going to be that much more desirable to go to get those resources. But you also need to go to that one space to build your building. So if I go to this purple to get all these resources, nobody else can now come here if they want to build a building in purple.
Typically. But I did like that they put in these extra spaces where they kind of go around those restrictions. So you've placed in purple, I can come over here and I can place in the deed buyback, I can go into the discard pile, and look at any of the buildings that I want to build and then build it there. Or build one that I already had in my hand. And
or there's also, for only one coin, you can go there and just pick an area that's... I mean, in theory, you could pick one that isn't blocked, but the whole reason why you go there is because you pick one that's blocked. And the same thing with the resources. You can come here and pick an area where you can grab those resources. So it's going to be pretty straightforward if you've played other worker placement games, but there's a lot of really cool twists. There are these... lanterns. Yeah, there's these lanterns. So when you build at certain areas, you'll get whatever bonuses, coins or points or resources or whatever at the end of every round. But there's a weaker side and a stronger side. So you could be like, oh, well, I'm going to come here. This one's on the stronger side. Okay, sweet. So at the end of the round, I'm going to get a point and a resource. And then another player can come over to a spot over here to flip it and be like, nope, you're just getting one coin. Eat it.
And especially with those end of game condition cards, because there are some that have to do with where you are and what lanterns are out there. And either you want to have your buildings with the red lanterns, or you want to have blue lanterns on a certain amount of regions that you don't have a building on. And so on top of them giving bonus points in game to other people and yourself, there's also a lot of end game points that can be tied up in them. Mm-hmm. So those little lanterns can cause a lot of contention in the game because, again, there aren't that many places to go to manipulate them. And so, it's not like there's this one space can do this one thing, and if I take that space, nobody else can do it. There aren't that many spaces out there. And so there is a lot of contending over what spaces you want to take. And do I want to take that space now? Because there's this other thing I want to do, and I don't want that to get messed up either. But do I want to wait and do this because I really need to do this? And that's where a lot of the brain burning comes in, is what order of operations and what do I want to risk potentially not being able to do this round.
The other thing that can really get tied up is there aren't enough spots on the board for all of these buildings. So the orange, there's 2 spots to build in the orange zone, and there's 3 orange buildings that could be built. So if you have one in your hand and you want to build it, you should probably build it as soon as you can, because somebody else, there's only 1 spot left, somebody else could have that last one in their hand as well and take it from you. Then you're just okay, well, now I need to use all of these little resources that I've collected and try and build something else. I'm going to have to discard this card and get some the random ones or whatever. I thought that was pretty interesting because it definitely stresses you to okay, I need to get this out now because I have the stuff to do it.
Yeah, you definitely feel an awful lot of pressure. You definitely feel
urgency.
Urgency. And you feel even though there's no real direct conflict with other players, you always feel every other player could
take something from you.
Yeah, they could get in your way real easily. So you really have to be, on the offense. And there's another aspect that we never really talked about, is that the board is sort of split up into 3 different regions where there's mountains, plains, and trees or whatever. But it's even written here: northeast, southwest, and Central. And you'll get bonus points for having the most things built in that area, in the Northwest, Central and stuff. So there's a small amount of an area control aspect almost, because you could say, well, sir, I have these gold cards that want me to build down here, but I also really want to build up here because we're tied for most, buildings over here. So if I just throw one more there, then I'll get 8 points and he'll get nothing. So there's so many different reasons to build where you want to build.
But there's also 3 different levels of buildings that are worth a varying amount of points from 3, 5, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so the 3-point buildings are obviously a lot easier to build. You can lock down those areas a lot faster. But if you can hold out and build, if Aaron gets 2 3-point buildings here and I get 1 7-point building here, I get more points from the buildings. And he's going to get the area control, but we can, struggle down here for that as well. So again, there's just one more thing that you have to try to figure out. Do I want to go for my low cost buildings or I want to go for my high cost? And even like in the beginning of the game, you draft out your starting hand of buildings. So there's that as well.
There's definitely no dominant strategy, I found. It's definitely benefits, especially when you know the game and you're playing with people who know. You definitely know all the different types of possible goals that could be in there and know what you could be going for, what another player could be going for. And I don't know. I felt like at first I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be relatively basic. But it's impressively deep.
However, it does, rounds still go surprisingly quickly. Because it is, at the end of the day, a worker placement game. You place your worker and you do the thing on that spot. And there's some, you can pick what resources you want to take out of the bag. It may take you a second to figure that out. Or you may be, struggling between 2 different things. But it does move relatively quickly.
It is true. I don't know if we mentioned that yet, that there's an awful lot of randomness. Like you said, that we get
random seeded
resources, but a lot of the ways that you gather resources is pulling randomly from the bag. So in order to get the exact resource you want, if you don't see it already out there on the board, you will kind of have to pay for it. But as you're building these buildings, you can get coins or points or resources and stuff. So it's almost like you're building a little bit of an engine as you're building buildings. They have end of round abilities, so you could be like, well, now I have a way to just gain 5 points every round, or to gain 2 of exactly what I want.
One was gain 3 coins every round, and one was spend 3 coins to gain 5 points every round. So I'm like, these two together is just gain 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
One other thing is that at the beginning of each round, you deal out there's a card that flips over that kind of gives an effect. It could, make buildings cheaper to make. It could, add extra resources out there. It definitely
give you points when you build shrines.
When you actually build them. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, they affect the kind of what you want to do that round.
So obviously, Neverboard Gaming highly recommends Jinja. If you're a fan of Lords of Waterdeep or Champions of Midgard, seriously, I feel like this one would be a no-brainer for you. You can jump into this game with a 2-minute rules explanation and be like, all right, I got it. Let's go. Boom.
Definitely we'll have a link to this Kickstarter campaign in the description box down below, as well as a card popping up, and just click anywhere to take you to the Kickstarter. Check it out. I definitely think you'll enjoy it.
It's a lot of fun. Either way, subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.